Well, welcome, guys. We start off this week really, for us, we start on Sunday as we move forward, learn from the first experience, and see watching the film. There's plenty of things we can grow from. Actually, going from week number 1 to week number 2 in any season, there is always an opportunity for growth and to make a big jump. We had a very efficient Sunday. Excited to see the players around the facility this morning and today and get started on the next opportunity, which brings another Power 5 in our first home game right here at Alpha Stadium. So we'll work diligently through today and create a plan that we're going to be able to make simple and concise for the players in all 3 phases so that, we can be more consistent as we spoke about after the game on Saturday. There were plenty of opportunities for us there where we were in rhythm. In our last opportunity where we played, in character, but we definitely have to clean up some of the things that we made mistakes in that first opportunity, which is very correctable stuff. We turn on the film and watch. It's basic fundamentals, things that would keep us in rhythm, being on the same page, as we always talk about when we pre-snap and communicating. To get ourselves in rhythm and to keep ourselves in rhythm. So, again, we had a very efficient Sunday, like where the team is at right now. They came back yesterday and worked. Again, was already in the facility this morning on their day off, getting squared away with some stuff academically, and obviously getting prepared for the next opportunity.
Questions? Both Tudor and Andy after the game, told us, hey, this is not acceptable. We have to get there. Tudor said, hey, we're not going to quit fighting. How pleased were you with kind of the response for the guys after such a tough loss?
Yeah, I'll say this, and I've already said it. We love this team. We got some unbelievable guys. We even leaving the game, we didn't need to watch the film to know some of the things that we need to be more consistent with, and that's the approach this team has had. So. Excited about that, and obviously that's why I said we had a very efficient, productive Sunday moving into a Monday, and obviously can't wait to get back on the field tomorrow and get rolling.
UCF is
feels like this is kind of out of the frying pan and into the fire here. You've got another talented quarterback this week. How do you feel, or what's your assessment of UCF's kind of dual threat quarterback?
Yeah, there's no question. Another dynamic quarterback in the second week. That has a lot of personnel, a lot of talent, a lot of speed around him. When they play another offense that was very, very productive in the first week, it's coming out the first week as the number 1 offense, in terms of yards, and put up a lot of points in the first game. But we see a quarterback who is very efficient through the air within their plan of attack in the pass game, and is one of the fastest players on the field as well. He's proven to do that over the course of the last 2 years in terms of being able to be a numbers. He is obviously a number in the run game that you got to account for. Then obviously with the passing game, being able to extend or turn a pass play into a run play with his explosiveness.
It sounds like UCF in a lot of ways is kind of like you guys in the run game. 2 great running backs, a dual threat quarterback. What's kind of the plan of attack against them?
Yeah, so the number 1 deal is we're going to get a lot of offense today in terms of the amount of formations and the motions in the pre-snap and how those formations change. And so it's going to come down to being exceptional in the pre-snap with identifying, being able to leverage formations, move ahead of the movers in terms of our communication and knowing the adjustments and where our eyes are going so that we can handle the numbers that brings. Basically, there's a potential for triple option numbers and being able to handle the quarterback's number within the run game.
The way your offensive line played, I don't think they had a penalty. You guys averaged nearly 5 yards a carry, only give up 1 sack. How do you feel like that group played?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of, for the first quarter and up until 9 minutes into that second quarter, we were in character and we were playing. We were in rhythm. It wasn't perfect by any means, but we were doing a good job at the line of scrimmage. On both sides of the ball, we want to find a way to create more pressure, on the quarterback defensively. But on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, we played pretty well. And there was a gap in there
in that second quarter of about 7 minutes where we fell out of character. And we've got to be able to have that next play mentality where we snap right back next play and focus on the plan and execute our responsibility. And ultimately that starts with us as coaches and making sure that we don't have those laps in how we prepare, how we train, and get our guys ready because, up until 9 minutes in the second quarter against the number 10 team in the nation, we were winning 9-7. And then we gave up 21 points. We fell out of rhythm on offense. We had some 3 and outs and a interception. And, those are things that we can fix. And when we knew that coming out of the game, but when you go back and watch the film, it is very evident that it is very controllable things that that we've already started to work on.
Andy, 138 yards rushing, 28 carries. 4.9, and the longest run from scrimmage was 13 yards. That's very consistent in the run. What did you see after watching the film and digesting everything? What's your confidence level in this running game right now?
Yeah, so I really, I'll say this. I was excited about how our O-line played. And obviously it's not just the O-line, it's the tight ends, it's the wide receivers blocking as well. But to be able to see the way we played against that defensive front last week, what we were able to do, we had 2 freshmen playing, obviously a lot of football in there. And then with the guys that have played a lot of football, we've said all along, we like the way the leaders are building the mentality of in creating, an identity. It's going to be no different this week. UCF has a talented, big athletic front. So we're going to have a huge challenge again. It's going to carry over into this week, and this week it's going to demand us to even be better than we were last week, given the challenges we had. But like where we're at and what we can build off of in the run game, and having a good plan to make sure that we can use the run game to keep us on track, keep us in rhythm.
21 with UCF. Similarities, differences?
Sorry, say it again.
You guys opened 21 with UCF.
Yes.
Similarities, differences between that UCF team and this one?
Yeah, offensively, there's some similarities. Different quarterback. I would say that they've gotten some speed into the critical. There's speed everywhere at their skill positions, their running back positions. From the structure, from what we've seen last night and this morning, there's a lot of things that are similar. Again, there's a lot of offense. Gus has done a great job of putting together this package within his offense and has been very successful everywhere he's been. Henshaw's done a really good job. You can see what he's done with the philosophy, and he's been a part of this before, and so he knows it, and they're clicking on all cylinders last week.
Look online at the tickets. It seems like there's a decent amount of tickets still left for Saturday. How badly do you need a packed house for a big game like this? Yeah,
there's no question. We get this opportunity to have a talented team, Power 5 team come in like this, and to be able to fill Albertson Stadium is, that home field advantage, and to be able to have it loud and to be able to play in front of Bronco Nation here, it's a big deal.
We made a lot of talk about it the last couple of years about the home record here and the standard there of winning on the blue and stuff. I know that's obviously the emphasis to get back to that, but is there anything you're doing differently, or how do you get back to making this a place that nobody wants to come in and play?
Well, I think the number one thing is just focusing on the preparation, and understanding what it looks like to prepare diligently. And obviously, I said that starts with us and making sure we're squared away on what it looks like in all 3 phases. And it really starts, again, with our preparation, even on our day off on a Monday, and the urgency and the focus and the diligence that goes into preparing. That's what it's always been about. And then it creates a confidence and a mentality then when game day comes along to be able to protect the blue.
See it maybe because it won't be dark, I guess, but just all the new lights and the new scoreboard and all the stuff that the administration's trying to do to improve the atmosphere and just everything that's going on here. What's your take on all that and what the game day environment's going to be like?
Yeah, there's no question. Our administration has done a great job, not only within Albertson Stadium of, creating and improving the game day atmosphere they have in a lot of our other sports as well. And that's our hats off to JD and the work that he's done and that he continues to do. JD is a tireless worker when it comes to those things. So it's exciting. That's we're excited for Bronco Nation to come see, and be a part of this first game, and getting this thing to a sellout would be a huge deal.
See Markel Reed, I think, until the second half. Do you anticipate that he'll play more against UCF?
Yeah, I mean, there's a progression that we want to make sure that we stay on, given the course of his return to play, and making sure that, again, this is a long season, right? And making sure that we build and we grow into this thing. And then as we continue to progress throughout the year, we'll continue to see him more and more.
You go back, you look at the play of your receivers. How do you kind of assess their performance? And in certain situations, how much do you need them to go up and go get it at times?
Yeah, there's no question, and very much so, like we just spoke about. I mean, it's not just the wide receivers, it's overall level of consistency that you get in those moments right there, and you get that experience of going against a team like we did last week, and having an understanding of how we competed at certain times and how we made plays, how we had explosive plays. Steph had a big catch down the field. Emac had one on the sideline where he toe tapped. Now the consistency of bringing that together, because there were lapses. There were lapses where we had some drops, and again, those are very correctable things. Coming down to focus and keeping the priority on getting the ball in our hands, and then what we do with it after, then obviously that's going to help us. So those are the things that we get into these games, and we've got a schedule where we are going to play. We are going to play elite teams week in and week out, and it's going to be our priority that we control the things that are very controllable.
On that, when you guys went for 2 on the weird formation there, what was wrong? I mean, was there actually a penalty, or did the refs miss that, or what?
Well, I mean, there was, within that, we can't move our feet, and it appeared that one of the guys had slightly moved his foot, so they obviously called us on that. But we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop with the creativity and finding our opportunities to create difficult situations.
The secondary from last year to this year. I mean, last year, season opener, you let up a lot of passing yards against Oregon State, came back and led the Mountain West in passing defense. What lessons do you take from last year to kind of say, hey, this can turn this thing around?
Yeah, there's no question. And that's the biggest part about that, about any first game, is just the growth that comes from it, regardless of who you're playing. We got to see exactly where we are at and what are the things that we can continue to do better. And it was no different last year. Okay, we go right back to the most basic fundamentals, the emphasis and the things that we need to do to be more consistent. Obviously, create a clear and concise plan as to exactly what it is we're doing, and then building in the standard of which we need to operate every single day of practice, so it becomes reaction, it becomes habit. And I'm excited. Again, we got a group that we know that cares. We got a coaching staff that cares about these guys, and we're looking forward. That's football. Where you're at in the first week is definitely where you're not in the second week, and not in the third, and so on.
Did you want Talon to run more against Washington, or were they doing something defensively that kind of limited that?
Well, I think that most teams are going to have a game plan to make sure that quarterback number, is obviously defended. And so at times there's going to be opportunities, and at other times there's not going to be, based off of what a defense is working to take away. And so for us as a staff, we do have, I'll say in the last game, there were over 10 plays called that were read type plays, for the quarterback. And so it really comes down to what we have in terms of the structure and what a defense is doing.
Andy, you mentioned the word confidence. What ways have you and your staff used in the past maybe to build it up, maybe build it back, certainly with a big opponent coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's ingrained into the process. You're going to learn from each one of these experiences that we have. It's a season that involves growth from week to week, day to day. It all goes into the process, how we prepare, not only how we prepare our players, but how we prepare a game plan in terms of how we teach it and how we implement it, and then being able to go and execute that together collectively throughout the course of the week. In this game, that is the only real way to gain that confidence that obviously leads to the mentality that you can play with on game day.
Andy, I know that after the game, you guys you mentioned, maybe eyes were out of place at times. How do you feel like your pre-snap communication was? I mean, especially in the first half, for the most part, it seemed like it was all right.
Well, again, if we're speaking, are you speaking about the defensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball? So again, I mean, we forced them to punt 3 times. We forced them to punt 3 times there in the first quarter into the second quarter. And then there were a few lapses within that communication, that eye control that we always stress. That's where it starts. Like eliminating explosive plays starts with that. And so, again, there's very controllable things that we will emphasize, that we will build into patterns and build into the expectation, the standard of everything we do, from the meeting rooms to the walkthroughs to the actual team reps within practice.
Explanation as to what was going on with the cleats or the slipping?
We've dug into that because as you watch the film, it was very evident and clear. You turn on the film and you see it. There was a lot of slipping going on in the field. Again, it's always about what you can control. I mean, we focus on as a staff where our feet are when we're transitioning, where we're changing direction. That'll be a huge emphasis. But otherwise, I mean, we've worn those cleats before. Obviously leading up through fall camp and the prep and stuff like that, it's not the first time those guys have put those cleats on. So we're working to make sure that we're not in that situation again, because there was a fair amount in all 3 phases of the game, whether it was on kickoff coverage, whether it was blitzers rushing near the quarterback and turning an edge, and our feet were sliding out from underneath us, wide receivers coming out of breaks, DBs coming out of breaks.
Do you bring typically 1 pair of cleats or 2, or what's kind of the standard?
Yeah, I mean, so it's not like the olden days where you can unscrew, and that's years and years ago. So Nike makes one pair of cleats now, and the bottoms are pretty consistent for what it is, for that playing surface.
Did UW have new turf or anything like that? I mean,
Say it again.
Did UW have new turf or anything? I mean, I didn't know UW wasn't slipping
right
that much, it seemed like.
Yeah. So, again, we got to work on the things that we can control, and that's our patterns of movements, how we change direction and things like that. So that will be the emphasis for us, in making sure that, again, and within our movements, our feet are underneath our hips, and it's always about, feet before eyes, and making sure that we're doing everything we can.
By UCF's offense, what about their defense? I mean, the numbers coming out of Kent State look pretty impressive.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's a big physical. I mean, it's a fast defense now. They got some length in the secondary. We already spoke about the defensive front. They were disruptive last year. They got some guys back from that front last year. They held their opponent to 6 points and really a limited amount of yardage as a whole, under 250 yards as a whole. So they were pretty good in their first opportunity. And there's some, there'll be definitely, as in any game, some matchup things that we got to be very aware of.
Make of UCF as a program and just what they've done the last couple of decades, and obviously followed kind of in Boise State's footsteps with some of those big wins and undefeated seasons, and then obviously parlayed that into the Big 12. For a while, it was kind of the 2 programs that, in the group of 5 everyone was looking at. How do you kind of look at where they're at, what they've done, and how you guys obviously are trying to be on that level? Yeah, so I mean, they've, as a big picture, outlook on college football, they've done a great job of growing. Not just obviously the football program. Football program over the last decade has done a really, really good job. I mean, they've had tremendous growth in what they've been able to do, but there are other sports as well.
What's your assessment of just the D line in general? I mean, they had it seemed like you guys had good pressure early in the game, kind of trailed off. Obviously, run game you didn't get to see much from, but just overall, what were you seeing?
That was one thing that, obviously is going to be a huge component. We're facing, the number 1 rush offense. They ran the ball for 389 yards last game. So while there wasn't a lot of rushing attempts, felt like we played physical at the line of scrimmage with our defensive front. We had some guys in there that, were playing considerable amount of time for their first time. The first play of the game, was a run play, and the way we attacked the line of scrimmage, and, we got a TFL there on that first play. That was exciting to see, and we continued on. Again, how we find our ways to create pressure on the quarterback is always going to be, at a premium.
the way James played. I think after the last scrimmage, you expressed your excitement with the way that he was punting the ball. Not only to average what he did, but to limit returns too. How impressive was what he did?
Yeah, 47 net. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty elite. That's more than good. That's pretty elite. So now being able to continue to do that and find ways, obviously, to mix the windows up on our punt team in terms of the formations and things like that, punt return teams got to handle. It's always going to be a premium on the snap punter operation. So the growth that we saw there from last year with James and now and obviously being able to continue to build off of that, but that was a huge part in the first game of flipping some field position. It's not just that net has a huge factor when it comes down to the overall field position throughout the course of the game. Early on, because we had an explosive on the first kickoff, the field position was, the offense was starting backed up, and eventually we were able to flip that and get ourselves in better situations there. And a lot of that has to do with how the whole team plays together and flipping that field from defense to then putting, the special teams out there and what we're able to do with that to create.
So, I mean, for your offense, I think in the first half, your average starting field position was like the 16 or 17. How hard is it, to offensively when you're having to go 85, 90 yards every drive? Yeah, I mean, it starts off with all three phases playing together. With that first kickoff starting, defense starting at the middle of the field, we went 3 and out there, but obviously they're in a pin situation now, and it just creates the efficiency of the offense was there. I mean, we had the opportunity to move the sticks, but we dropped the ball on that first third down there that would have moved the sticks. And then even within that, when you got a guy that is efficient the way he is as a punter, even if you don't continue to move the ball down the field, you've now are in a position to actually flip the field. So it's all those small things within the game that when we talk about collectively builds a level of consistency. Those are the things that we're talking about that then have ramifications on the big picture.
George leave for a little bit, but when he came back, I mean, he was playing most of the game. What did you think of his performance? Yeah, I mean, it was awesome to see him battle through the way he did and come back into the game, and was excited to see him back out there. As George always whether, the things that go unnoticed is probably the way he protects. I mean, he did a good job within protection. Obviously running the ball, he did a good job getting up in between and running between the tackles. And as always, George is going to be a physical runner. I don't know if anyone asked you about it since over the last couple months, but I saw you ran out on the field for the first time in warm-ups, and you had the visor with AW on, and a lot of guys around the program have talked about what Andrew meant to this place, and obviously with his passing. What did he mean to Boise State, and what have these last couple months been like?
He was he's a rock in the program in terms of who he is as a person. As a young man, Andrew was extraordinary in a lot of ways. Not only he's a very intelligent person that had a unbelievable personality, but for a guy his age, extremely diligent, a guy that learns extremely fast. And but the overall theme is, how Andrew made you feel when you're around him. Like, he's just one of those people. He had an unbelievable impact in his time in this program.
Building off that, I did notice quite a few guys wearing visors too. What was it about him in the visor that obviously obviously makes you think about him? Well,
I mean, it's just, again, we're like we said all along, I mean, he's going to live on through us and our experience and the opportunity that we got, the time we got to spend around him. And so, there's certain things that, we continue to do around here that no one sits in his seat in the team room here. Obviously, the visors are a tribute to him and as a reminder to who he was and the impact he had on this program.
We saw Ethan Card come out a couple times on some packages, third down stuff. Is that just kind of like him using him as an extra tight end or an extra blocker?
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to use our personnel to our advantage with, getting a guy that is, capable. Can't wait to see him go down the field here with his number 19 jersey on. Waiting for Bush to unleash that, but it's
it just shows you that if guys work and they compete, and we'll find a role for them. And Ethan's been awesome here. And again, it's what the O-line is building too. There's other guys too that are within that framework of guys that we want to get on the field, that, as we spoke before, that are developing behind the scenes right now and that are doing really good things. And as we always talk about building that dependable depth, it's got to be at all positions right now.
You talked about protecting the blue earlier. I mean, obviously you're going to want to do that no matter where in the season you are, but how much pride, do you guys take pride in the 21-year home winning or opening home win streak at all?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we take pride in. I mean, being a part of this program, there's high standards. The things that we work towards and that we build in, from January all the way until now, that got to create a foundation in what we do and how we operate and the mentality that comes with it. So any opportunity we get to play on the blue, we take great pride in that. And as always, it's always that 1-0 mentality. This is the only game that matters right now. Our preparation and our focus is all on this.
I'm not asking you to give away the game plan, but how would you say Boise State's offense will evolve from week 1 to week 2?
Yeah, I mean, as we are early into that process, as we go into the second week, the thing that I would say is that watching the film from last week, and as we're early in the stages of building this plan, there's definitely things that we can build off of that we did well. There's things that we did well in the pass game. There's things we can clean up. The variety of things that we have in the run game and being able to get to some of those things is going to be a critical component of this game. And so, the overall efficiency is where we want to see. That's what we're focused on. It's not like things are going to drastically change, but from week 1 to week 2, where we make the biggest jump is within that efficiency.
I think against Air Force last year, you guys had like a number violation. And I noticed Gavin Hambrick, he switched from 35 to 55. Seems like he's a fixture on kickoff. Did he have to make that switch because Jonah wears 35?
Well, we can switch out jerseys every play, or we can slide him in a new number, and I don't think we're changing Jonah's number. So, it's part of it. He's a linebacker. 55 looks good on linebackers.
Anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Saturday afternoon. And once again, I take full responsibility. I need to do a better job. We got a really good group of guys that love football, love each other, and we got to be better. And it starts with me.
Like Patrick said, another tough test ahead of you. How hungry are the guys to kind of right the ship after last week?
Yeah, no doubt. I will tell you this group of guys will be hungry regardless what happened last week. Obviously, that's even extra fuel in the fire. And more than anything, obviously you get punched in the mouth the way we did on Saturday. It does motivate you, but more than anything, we know we're way better than that. We're way better than that when how we communicate, how we play with great eye control, how we're on the same page. Like all those things are how we played was uncharacteristic of us. Obviously goes through the preparation, which is on me. So our guys are very excited just to get back on the field with each other, to play together as a team, to play together as a unit, to do the little things that it needs to play good defense. Communication and eye control in the pre-snap, getting to the football, tackling, creating takeaways, like all those things relate to playing good defense. And obviously we need to take a big step this weekend.
The first several possessions, obviously, for Washington felt like everything they did get, they were struggling to. And I don't know if they just popped or if they found something, because then it got into the point where I felt like they were doing exactly what they did best, which is driving the ball downfield. What, from your perspective, did they find something in what you were doing?
At the end of the day, they had to have, right? I mean, at the end of the day, too, I didn't do a good enough job switching up pictures for them. And there's a lot of things from my standpoint that I need to be better next time. But I'm proud of the way our guys started the game. I'm proud of the way that they, started the game on the 50-yard line and responded to a 3-and-out. Like, those are the things we talk about a lot defensively, where you respond, right? We can't punt. We can't have any, oh, you're right, coach, I'll get it fixed next play. Like, you have to be on that razor's edge. And I'm proud of how they started the game. And then obviously as the game went on, especially into the second quarter, I got to do a better job of switching up the windows and pictures, because it was just too easy of a picture for the quarterback, too easy of a picture from the pressures we were bringing for them to pick them up. We didn't get enough pressure to Penix. And then in coverage, we had some errors that came up that we can be way better at. Once again, I take full responsibility. I don't say that in a way of that's just because I'm the DC. I really do. And my heart hurts for the group of guys I coach, because I know how much they worked for that moment, from not just game week. It was summertime. It was spring ball, the training they did. And I know we're way better than we showed, and we're going to work our tail off to have that product on the field.
I think it's easy sometimes to see a wide open touchdown and just blame whoever is the closest to it, when probably there was so much more going on.
Absolutely.
But like, how do you look at the safety? I mean, some of those plays, I mean, the guys were open by 10, 15 yards. Is that miscommunication? Is that just, the safety or the cornerback getting beat? What do you attribute a lot of those to?
Yeah, obviously. And once again, first and foremost, it's my fault, because we didn't do a good enough job from a rep standpoint to the call in that situation, and making sure everybody knew who they were supposed to be on. So, because once again, we have a great group of guys we coach. There's not a guy that I see every day that is not excited to get better and grow. I mean, they're up there right now watching UCF film, getting ready. So that's the kind of group we coach. So obviously, first off, starts with me in regards to how we're prepping them for these moments and the different looks we're seeing. And then secondly, defense always starts with communication, eye control, making sure, okay, what are we going to play to these sets? As they release vertical, who's grabbing what number, and all those things. And once again, it comes from practice, comes from us as coaches doing a good job to make sure it's clear for these guys, because they have a want to. And I got to do a better job changing the picture in that game, because it was too easy for them. We needed to make it harder on them in a lot of those situations, and I did not do a good enough job.
Can you explain the eye control piece and maybe an example of what that means?
Yeah. So when I say communication, eye control, defensive calls are called in different than obviously offensive calls that tell you the exact formation, tell you the exact route, tell you exactly what's happening. Defensive calls are signaled in with built-in adjustments to the different formations we're playing depending on the call. So as a defensive unit, from the safeties, the linebackers, to depending what we're seeing, there's communication that needs to be built in. Us as coaches then teach that throughout the week, that, hey, if we get this set, we want you guys to communicate blank. If we get this set, we need to communicate blank. More situational based. And that needs to be clear for our guys, so they know without question, okay, these are the tools in my toolbox that I can use to communicate. Because at the end of the day, as long as we're all on the same page, we're going to be just fine. If all 11 are playing the same thing, we talk about all the time, if we're all wrong, we're all right. And that comes for me as the defensive coordinator, making sure that's clear what we need to be playing in those situations, so we don't give up the explosive plays we did.
When you look at the the way the secondary responded last year after getting torched in the opener against Oregon State. What lessons can you take from that, and how can you point to that and say, hey, this is how we turn the ship around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different things from the past that we've learned. Obviously, you don't like to go through a 56-point game to have to learn the lessons, but we are. And from last year, losing game one and having to get some things fixed going into week two, we're doing the same thing right now. And we have a group that's very hungry. We have a group that does not feel defeated. We have not lost our confidence. Obviously, we see the issues. We see the deficiencies from if it's scheme to techniques to eye control. We've seen those, and those are being corrected as we speak. But I know it's a group of guys that are very excited to go play again with each other on Saturday. And once again, they're motivated to just play together, making sure we're all doing our 111th. It's not trying to make a play because I love this team. I want to no, we need you to do your job in this snap. And once again, coming from me to these players, that needs to be clear what that is. And that's going to be the biggest deal. If I'm supposed to be in this gap, you got to be in that gap. I know you want to make a play and I love you for it, but you got to do your job. If you're supposed to be in the post, you got to be in the post. So those are just some things. Once again, starting with me, it's just got to be clear for our guys because they care. They want to get it fixed. They want to be an elite defense. That's the standard here. Obviously, that was not even close to how we played on Saturday, and we're excited to get it fixed, just like we worked to get it fixed last season.
A lot of fans will say, okay, well, is Washington just really, really good, or is the secondary really got some problems? It's probably somewhere in the middle. How hard is it to gauge, I guess, some of the issues or things when you're playing against a passing attack that's that good?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Washington's very talented. They've got a great crew of not only the offensive line protecting the quarterbacks, receivers, but we're way better than we played. And that's what we talked to our defense about, and just showing them plays where we know we're better, right? From a communication standpoint to even a scheme, from a call, we're better than we played. And so looking at it, does that mean that if we get all these things, games never work like that. You're never going to go into a game and leave. Everything's perfect, guys. Great job. We'll see you guys on Monday. There's always going to be stuff to clean up, but we got to do a better job eliminating all these explosive plays because that's what hurt us on Saturdays. Obviously, the amount of explosive plays they had. In the first quarter, we were able to limit them. And then obviously in the second and third quarter, it opened up on us. And so that's where I believe Washington's a really good offense, but we're way better than we played.
What about in the red zone, too? I mean, I know even in some of the scrimmages, we heard that you guys gave up some yards, but in the red zone, they were locked down. I think they were 5 for 5 on touchdowns.
Yep, that's not our standard at 100%, BJ. And that's something that for us, especially against an offense like that, you're going to give up some plays. I mean, they do a great job, but our mentality in the red zone is 3 or nothing. No matter what or how they got down there, we have to have mechanisms to where we are not going to break down there. We're going to hold you to field goals, or it's going to be 0. We're going to go block the field goal, or we're going to create a takeaway. And it didn't happen on Saturday. And so, once again, starting with me from a game plan standpoint, did we have enough answers? Did we put our guys in good enough spots to be able to defend what we were seeing? And so we're looking at it holistically right now, from the top down to, are we putting our guys in the best situation to be able to defend in the red zone? Because you have to. You have to play good red zone defense all the time, especially when you're playing an offense like Washington.
On Saturday, you guys only blitzed a handful of times, and it's so hard against a quarterback like Penix. He seemed to find an open receiver. What do you see with UCF? I mean, Plumlee kind of seems like the same way, and he's got the legs too. Mm-hmm. Is this going to be a game where it's tough to blitz just because of the weapons they have and how smart their quarterback is? Yeah,
obviously, even on Saturday, we got to do a better job picking and choosing when we use our pressures. We have to create more pressure on the quarterback. A huge part of what we do defensively is pressure and confuse the quarterback, which is not just the front. These explosive plays are not just the safeties or the corner that everybody on TV sees that's not there, right? It's holistic. It's, once again, starting with me from the play call to put him in good spots. But it directly correlates. Are we getting enough pressure till the ball comes out quick? Is the quarterback holding it too long, right? There's a lot of intricacies on defense just because on TV it looks like, oh, this one player was wrong. That's not always the case. And so it's definitely not one position group. It's not one player. But especially going into playing UCF, they do, playing them from 21, they do a phenomenal job offensively. First off, the tempo is a real deal. They want to go as fast as possibly can. They get a first down. The sticks aren't even close to being set by the time they're rolling. So that's something they're going to be on the attack with. And their quarterback, number 10, Plumlee, one of the fastest guys at quarterback we've seen in a long time. And his arm strength is big time. He can make all the throws. And if it's not there and he takes off, that's very scary too. So we've got to find mechanisms to make sure, obviously, we create pressure, create confusion, but we got to make sure we keep number 10 in the pocket.
How impressive is he as an athlete? Not only his ability to be a dual threat, but during the spring game, he was playing in a baseball game and he's jumping on a cart to ride across, play in spring football.
No doubt.
How impressive is he as an athlete?
I mean, you just, to your point, Jamie, when you can play two sports at the level he does, that speaks to who he is as an athlete and who he is as from a mental standpoint, being able to not only play quarterback and elite offense, but play another sport. I think the world of him as an athlete, especially seeing him over the years grow, seeing him from last season to now. I mean, he's always been able to take off and run, but he can make all the throws. I mean, he could throw the ball a mile. He's put in space. He can roll to his throwing arm to the right. He can also make the same accurate throws rolling to his left, which is very impressive. And he can put it on a dime. And he's got a receiving core that can stretch the field in numbers 1, 2, and 3. They can all stretch the field. And he does a great job getting the rock. And once again, he does a really good job. If everything's covered, he's not, and he's out. And it creates matchup issues.
With the way Washington was playing, you didn't get to see much from the run defense. Obviously, a much more balanced offense you're facing this week.
Mm-hmm.
From the limited opportunities, what do you see from the defensive line?
Yeah. Excuse me. I was proud of how our D-line played the run. I really was. I mean, especially being younger at a lot of those spots. Our coaching staff did a really good job getting them ready to play the game. I think they played physical, they played tough, they did their job, and that was cool to see. Once again, not a lot of looks at the run in regards to the offense we were seeing, but the reps we did get, I was proud of how they played. Obviously, still things are growing from a run game standpoint, but I was proud of how they stepped up, especially a young group that doesn't have a lot of game reps underneath their belt. Obviously, it's going to pick up in a major way this week with a very balanced attack, and they'll give you almost every run scheme imaginable. And then obviously we got to transition to the pass rush as well.
How much does this defense need to feed off of a loud crowd and a home crowd for you guys?
Without question. Yeah, that's the exciting part. We're excited to come home. A huge part. Obviously, we want to win every game we play in. And I've already spoke about the disappointment in regards to this past weekend. But when we play in the blue, it's a huge deal. It's not just something we put out, but defending the blue, defending home for these fans, for these people. I mean, it is an absolute huge part of what we do. And so everybody that comes, being loud, creating chaos, like that is a strategic advantage for us, especially defensively. We've seen it. We've seen guys come in and get rattled. We've seen guys come in and the cadence and the motions aren't the way they should because they can't hear. And it's a huge strategic advantage for us, and we're going to need every single bit of it this Saturday.
Is that more what BJ's talking about with the crowd? You said they like to run as many plays as they can.
Mm-hmm.
How does a loud stadium prevent Gus from being able to do that?
I think obviously, Gus Malzahn's played in a lot of really loud stadiums, so they've got a lot of different mechanisms that they're going to use. They're not going to be shocked by coming to a sold out loud stadium, but just in general, there's still 11 people on the field too. There's still 11 human beings on the field that they got to be able to operate, and whatever their mechanisms are in regards to a loud stadium, it's going to make it harder on them than if it was quiet. That's just the reality of it. And so we're going to need every bit of that. They're going to have different mechanisms. They're still going to go fast. They're still going to have all those ways because they've played in a lot of different big stadiums that are loud. But I do know it's a strategic advantage for us.
They seem to, kind of like Washington, lots of pre-snap motion, eye candy, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But they've got, like Boise State, they've got two great running backs and a quarterback that can move. What's kind of the plan of attack against a three-headed monster like that?
Yeah. First off, it's handling the tempo. I mean, they want to be on the attack. And we talk about all the time, instead of letting the tempo dictate what we do, we want to attack the tempo. And that's a big thing, obviously, from working it through the summertime to prepping this week for it. Our guys will be ready for those moments. We've seen tempo teams in the past, and I think Gus Malzahn and his crew do an outstanding job from a tempo standpoint, but that's going to handling the tempo first and foremost. Then it's just we've got to go back to our emphasis. And for us, it's with all the eye candy, with the tempo. Tempo is designed to have you play with a lack of eye control and a lack of fundamentals and techniques, right? It's so you're misaligned because you don't see the formation the right way. You don't see your keys because it's going fast, right? All these things are to create a lack of the fundamentals and techniques that breed elite defense. And so that's what we're harping on this week, to make sure that we attack that by being lined up before they do. And we're going to play with great eye control. We're going to play with great fundamentals and technique from the front end to the back end. And then we're going to have different answers in regards to what they do offensively.
We saw Amari McCoy out there some. Obviously, Jaden Virgin, some of these guys that hadn't play a lot or at all. I mean, what were your thoughts on some of the guys that were getting their feet wet out there?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, BJ, at the end of the day, when these guys that have kind of paid their dues or new guys to the program get out there and cut their teeth, game reps are phenomenal, right? That you learn so much good and bad through the game reps you get because you're ready for the moment more the next time, right? You learn so much through those moments. So the more we can get this group of guys to stack those game reps up, it's gonna be huge. And especially with a group on defense that's playing with some guys that are younger, guys that haven't played as much, it's huge that as the season goes, okay, how can we grow from week 1 to week 2? Obviously, as a whole defense, but even these individual spots where now these guys are no longer the ones that haven't played a lot. As the season goes, they're going to be guys that then get a good amount of reps underneath their belt. And so it's cool to see them respond, get these reps, maybe see where we want them to grow, see where we can play these certain situations better, and they will.
That wasn't easy for him, but I didn't think Rodney played against Washington.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, holistically, like, especially when you give up the yards we give up, it's easy to look at and see. I shouldn't say it's easy, but everyone's going to see, okay, was it the corner? Was it the safety? And it's holistic. It's holistic. And so there's from Rodney to the rest of our safeties, to our corners, to our linebackers, to our D-line, to our edge guys. There's so much to clean up that we are better than we showed. Rodney cares about this team. He loves this team. He wants to be elite, and he wants this defense to be elite. And now he did not play to the level that we all know he's capable of, and he's going to do a great job this week, prep himself, be ready to play this game, and I know he will.
Anything else?
The Latin, no turnovers either. I mean, just
Huge part. I mean, we have to create takeaways. We get the one on the ground. We've got 4 guys around it, and we kick it back to them. Can't happen. Can't happen. Once again, got to do a better job emphasizing practice from drills to all the different situations because we have to create takeaways. I don't care what offense you're playing, but especially the one we saw Saturday and the one we're going to see this weekend, we got to take the ball. Have to.
We didn't hear the names Dimitri Washington or Ahmed Hassanin, and they were kind of touted a ton, but they were going up against probably 2 of the better tacklers they're going to go up against this season. Do they kind of have the hunger heading into week 2 of like, okay, time to get back on track and do what we know we can? Yeah.
Once again, I would say everybody in Seattle on Saturday afternoon feels that way, right? Not just those 2, because once again, they played tough, they played physical. There's some things from a pass rush standpoint that I know they're excited to grow in, but it's me putting them in good spots. It's me finding a better pressure plan to where we can create confusion and give this front time to get home and get production. But just like them and just like everybody else on defense, starting with me, I know we're very excited to grow from what we showed on Saturday because we're better than that. And once again, start with me.
All right. Thank you all.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Overall, I know 19 points out, so now we were going for there. What were just your overall thoughts on how you guys played offensively?
Yeah, I think inconsistent is probably the biggest takeaway from that game. I think certainly wanted to start fast, and felt we put some pressure early there. Was proud of the group in what we call the middle 8, the last drive of the second quarter, first drive of the third quarter, but just overall too inconsistent to go on the road and beat a team like that.
Second half, particularly the score was the reason probably, but you guys passed more than I think some people might have expected with this team with the backs you have. I mean, how do you look at that first half? I think it was 24-13 pass to run.
Yeah, I think obviously there's always got to be self-reflection, and that's something we took a long, hard look at. There was a there was a time there in the second quarter just with George seeing where he was at. From a health standpoint, I think that influenced us a little bit, but also. Again, self-reflection. I think you look at their 2 losses from the year before, UCLA, Arizona State, and they certainly, did a good job stopping the run against Texas. And so I think sometimes, maybe that can be in your mind a little bit too much, but certainly looking back at it, needed to do that more to put our defense in a better situation and give us a better chance.
What did you think of Talen's performance? I mean, it seemed like he missed on a lot of throws that we've seen him make last year in practice, but it didn't help probably that the receivers dropping balls and just playing against a great defense too.
Yeah, I didn't think as much of the missing throws. I thought for the most part, from an accuracy standpoint, when his feet were set, they were there. I just think I take full ownership of it. He understands this from a decision-making standpoint. We know what it is at the quarterback position. You can be really good for a lot of reps, but the consistency of making those decisions over and over again is going to be what you're judged off of. And I think we're certainly ready to learn from that, grow, and excited to get back out there on Saturday.
Andy mentioned that you guys brought up the 10 read options that Taylor had the option, obviously, to run. How did he do with making those assessments? And I mean, you can't force the ball, obviously, if the defense hasn't accounted for it.
Yeah. There's certainly decisions to be made, obviously, based off of what we call the box count and how many defenders are in there. Some we addressed, some we talked about during the game. We thought there were a couple more opportunities there for him to pull it and run it. And again, I think that's growth. I think it's growth for him. I think it's growth for me again. One thing, certainly they played so wide with their two defensive ends that on a lot of those plays, the decisions were the right decisions to hand the ball off. But certainly more quarterback designed run for him in between those defensive ends, in between the tackles, is something we've addressed.
I kind of feel like a key point in the game was about 6 minutes to go. You guys are on third and 3 or so, and you hit Riley for the first down, and then George gets called for a clipping. But I mean, if you guys pick up that first down, this feels like halftime could have a really different feel to it. I don't know. You go back and look at that play, and now you're in 3rd and 16 versus 1st and 10. I don't know, they just kind of that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think games like that, always come down to a couple plays, and we had a little bit in that game offensively of one thing here, one thing there. And again, you're not going to go on the road and beat a team like that. Certainly, conversion there could have helped gain momentum, helped us control the clock, not put the defense in such a bad position. So take full responsibility. We got to learn from it. Got to make the biggest jump of this season, week 1 to week 2.
Drops by the receivers.
Yeah, we just again, I think it's live action. I think emotions are high, and hopefully that's something we get corrected here, because, certainly there was slipping, there were some drops, some things we got to handle. But again, it's just mostly on the quarterbacks. Receivers get on the same page.
Was that a problem at all during fall camp, drops? Or
it really wasn't some any more than any other fall camp. And so, I think everybody offensively at all positions, we just got to settle in, not try to do too much, and certainly make the plays that we can make. And I think we left some on the table there.
What was it with the slipping, Bush? Andy said, hey, they don't make cleats that just screw in and screw out anymore. It's a different type of deal. Obviously, you noticed it too offensively. Sure. What was the root cause of all the slipping? We didn't see Washington slip that much.
Yeah, not sure. I mean, I think it's something we've kind of tried to address, and whether it was a cleat issue again, that wasn't that wasn't the reason for the lack of production. I just think guys geeked out, not as much focus on their fundamentals, maybe all those kind of things, right, lead to that. But it's just us taking control of what we can control is a big focus for this week.
Taylor's never had an OC up top before. I don't know what that matters, but you're so high up there in that stadium. You're also the quarterback coach. A lot of OCs who are up top have the QB coach on the sideline to kind of keep them going. Is there a grace period maybe where Taylor needs to learn that, hey, I don't have Dirk in this sense running off to the sidelines one-on-one. We have to make an adjustment. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think there's always give or take. I think certainly don't feel we've had an issue with the communication in that game. I think after every drive, him and I were on the phone together. But we'll continue to address that, do what's best for him for sure. But there is just a level of comfort being up top, being able to see it from up there a lot cleaner than being on the field.
Taylor, in terms of like getting through his progressions, and it seemed like at times he just was sticking to the first guy, and also on the 2 picks, what did you see there?
Yeah, I think I think overall, right, he has done a really, really good job of his growth. since he's got here, right, with Dirk and continuing on of mechanically, I feel like he's really taken a big jump. And so now, as we all know, the final step of this quarterback piece comes down to the decision making, like you're talking about. And I think, certainly there were good decisions to be made, and he made a lot of them. And but we got to just keep developing there. I think from the first interception standpoint, I believe it was a 3rd and 9 situation. They played extremely soft. Ball needed to go to the underneath coverage. It's something we've been repping all camp, and I think he understands that. The second one, it's on me. I think we went to the screenplay probably for the 5th time. We had success with it, and that was an unfortunate one. But I think overall, it's always going to come down to that 3rd down execution, and certainly when we do take shots when they're not there, try to find outlets.
Line, did a pretty good job keeping Talon clean, made some holes for the running game. Overall, what was your assessment of the O-line?
Yeah, really proud of those guys. I mean, I think we really felt we knew what we were going to get out of the veteran guys, Garrett, Ben, and Cade, and I think all those guys held their own. But I think when you look at what Cage did and what Roger did in a tough situation, you got to be extremely proud of those guys. It's a testament to them being in a big environment. And, again, I thought they protected well. I thought they played extremely physical, and that's a huge momentum boost for us.
He cited efficiency as a way he thought the offense would evolve from week 1 to week 2. Where do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think exactly efficiency, consistency. Again, I think there were some high-end plays made in that game. I don't think the moment was too big for those guys. I think it just comes down to the consistency. I know we probably talked about that 7-8 minute span there in the second quarter. And if we clean that up, we feel it's a much different game. And so I think certainly giving these guys a chance, a better plan for what needs to happen in this game, and it falls on me.
Of Emacs, I mean, he had 15 targets, which is not too many off, but he had all of last season. And it seemed like you're moving him around a little bit, playing in the slot. Like, I don't know, is that kind of when you envision that we talk about his versatility kind of growing as a receiver? Did we kind of see that on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one guy, that certainly you saw and was able to play with those defensive backs. I thought he was out there making plays, speed off the ball. We were able to do different things with him. And obviously, I think the world of that guy, certainly with what he can become. So I think it's just going to be for him now is his preparation, buying into that process. He proved that he can play at that level, and we just got to continue to build on it.
I think there were a lot of fans, after fall camp and the way coaches and players have talked, we're excited about seeing Prince Strawn, and I don't think we saw him out there. Would you expect that, he'd see some time against UCF? Yeah,
I think so. Again, I think as a freshman, right, it's always on our mind again of, building it up with him, making sure he's confident when he's out there. A lot of times with how we do things as well, we play with a lot of personnel groups and have for a long time here. And so a lot of times the game dictates what the calls are. And I think, we had plans on playing them 5 to 8 plays in that game. But the hope is to build them up and get them going.
Right around I think there were 9 minutes left in the second quarter, he said, the offense got a little out of rhythm.
Yep.
What happened, and what does that even really mean to most people?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a couple things. I would say, we alluded to the 3rd down was during that time, right? We take that penalty, that drive stops. We have a situation where, looking back at it, feel like we were trying to be aggressive, called the game aggressive, and I heard us, I think, with taking some shots early in those drives and not building some momentum. So you got the drop, you got different things. So I think for us, I think one thing I know about this offense, one thing I know about this program is there'll be a lot of ownership taken. It starts with me. We talk about rhythm all the time, and we got to make sure we play with great rhythm.
Home opener win streak that dates back all the way back to your time as a player. What is it about this program that, obviously you always want to protect the blue, but the first game out there, you guys come out and you do it.
Yeah, I think, there's been a huge sense of pride, I think in playing on the blue and the support we've had from the community. Obviously, I think these players know it. You know, they know how important it is to protect the blue and be here and work towards it. So, you know, I think one thing I know about these guys, I think they understand there was a lot of disappointment, obviously, after this last game, but they came right back to work on Sunday. It'll be a great week of prep, and we got to do everything we can to protect it.
We talked about the offensive line. Some of the stuff that you were asking them to do, though, some of the bullying stuff, I mean, that seemed like it was high level at times. We asking those guys, especially guys like Roger, and for them to do it flawlessly. Was the degree of difficulty on some of that stuff pretty high, or maybe not? I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I think we ask a lot out of that group. You know, I think from the amount of different schemes we run, the communication they need to have. I think there was a good job too from the running backs, from the tight ends. I think on most of those plays, we were trying to do everything we could to create chips and double teams on some of those edge players. But again, I can't tell you how excited I am or how proud I am of that group. And again, those two young players on the offensive line for being in a big moment in their first game and playing how they played.
I know the guy has tremendous character and been here for a while. How much does he just need one of those big plays to go up and get one of them? Maybe kind of tips that confidence for him.
Yeah, I think that's critical, right? I think it's critical for every one of these kids. And, the ability to just go get over the hump, if you will, or make a big play in a big time game. And Billy's done it, but I think anytime you can, especially early in a game, go make that play, build a little bit of confidence, obviously can be critical throughout the rest of the game.
All right. Thank you.